Go for it.
All right. Yeah. All right, so you can see my PowerPoint slide there now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, wonderful. So we're just going to go through, obviously we're TaxTank, we're the ultimate tax and personal finance software.
Even if we do say so ourselves.
So Nicole's already gone over this a little bit, but what we'll cover in today's webinar, a general overview about TaxTank, why we started, you know, what we've built, and then we'll go into a live demo. Nicole will take you through, you know, sort of how TaxTank works, how bank feeds work, and just the basic functionality of TaxTank in the time that we have. And then we'll open up to questions after that if anyone has any questions. You know, TaxTank's ethos is that tax should be simple to manage, easy to understand, and hassle-free for everyday Australian taxpayers. And that's why we built TaxTank. So that's kind of our motto and what we stand by and what we want to make it easy for everyone to do. Now, we all know that the tax system in Australia is very complex. It is over 6,000 pages of tax legislation, and it's very complicated. It's a contentious annual event for most Australians, and it causes a lot of stress, undue stress actually, and tax laws can be easily misconstrued and misunderstood. So with the ATO's auditing system as well now, they have 20 computer models that match data from their person profiling, from access to our bank data, to access to insurers, to banks. There's absolutely everything that they continue to evolve and get access to. So it's really important for Australian taxpayers to now start to understand that the ATO has this data, they have these data matching systems, and in order to keep up and you know, get ahead of that, it's really important to start moving to a digital solution. So that's why we built TaxTank. So we make tax simple. So we're the first cloud-based tax software built specifically for individuals. So there's no other software on the market that caters to the individual and the individual tax return. So basically we've taken those 6,000 pages of tax legislation and we've built it into one simple tax solution that we think is easy for Australians to use. You can also invite your accountant or your advisor. So if you have a financial planner, a broker, basically anyone that you would like to invite and share your data with to get better, quicker results and you know, financial advice as well, you can invite them and it's free for them to join and use as well. So what we've all done is we've created all of the unified income and assets tied into one solution. So your work income and expenses, your property income and expenses, if you have a side hustle, so sole trader income and expenses, if you have shares, cryptos or other assets, you can manage those in there as well. And then a really important thing is you can actually upload and securely store your important documents and receipts. So if the ATO does come knocking, you can actually prove all your expenses and all your information straight away. So, you know, it's not a stressful time if they do decide to audit you as well. So then there's no shoeboxes of receipts and trying to find them. There's no faded receipts. You know, you're not going to lose any of that type of stuff. So that's an important part of what we've built in TaxTank. So the key benefits is that it's all built around live bank feeds, and we use open banking, which is fully compliant. It has secure data and means that you can trust the information coming through into TaxTank. Again, all of those automated smart tools, so you can actually set up recurring bank rules and set and forget. So your tax is automatically calculating in the background while you don't have to physically do it yourself. You have greater visibility over your money coming in and out. Transparency across all your investments. If you're a property investor or shares and crypto, you can actually see everything in one place. We also have budgeting tools. So if you want to set, you know, a monthly budget on coffee spend or, you know, those important cost of living things that are happening right now, you can do that as well. So The other thing is the live tax position. So you can see throughout the year how much tax you're paying. You can actually see whether you're going to get a tax refund or if you're going to owe. So there's no longer that end of year surprise when it comes to June 30. You already have an idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, and you can make decisions to plan for tax and to pay less of it, which is sort of the goal year round, isn't it?
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to now go to the better thing, which is the live demo of the software, which Nicole will take you through now.
Okay, so I'm not sure whether or not anyone's registered an account, but anything is sort of accessible. You can register through our website and obviously log in if you have already registered. So our registration is individual accounting firms and advisor groups. And as Irene mentioned, once you, oh, hang on, we'll just admit somebody. Once you've sort of established that account, you can invite any of those people within TaxTank. I'm just going to log straight into a demo account, I think, that we've prepared earlier. Let me just go straight into one. Okay, so once you've registered with TaxTank, you'll land up on the dashboard and you'll see this checklist for onboarding. We've developed a checklist because it's sort of customed around the different income types that you've selected when you're registering your account. And it will step you through the process. So for example, if you have property or if you have sole trader businesses, you would add those before you link your bank accounts because everything is associated to either a property or to a particular business within the system. You can go backwards and forwards through the financial years. Each year we obviously lock in all of the tax logic and any legislative changes or grandfathering provisions to ensure that tax is not only accurate in the current year, but you have that consistent historic data matching for prior years as well. When the ATO says 5 years, but if you're an asset holder, that 5 years is really 5 years from, you know, whenever you've sold an asset, which could be over a longevity of you know, many years, especially with property investments. When you add forecasted incomes, you'll be able to see your tax position in real time. And the actual tax position as you're allocating from live bank feeds, we're updating that in real time as well. And you can make that comparison to ensure better decision making throughout the year. If we jump into the work tank, which is probably the main tank for today, let me just close this checklist. So at the moment, we don't have any data in here, but the first step within our checklist is to add some forecasts. So if we do that now, then as we sort of add things, if I go, all of these dashboards will start to populate. So if I'm earning 80 grand a year and I'm getting paid monthly, you can change start dates. So at any point in time, if your salaries increase or if you've moved to different positions or different jobs, then you're able to accurately forecast what your tax payable would be. And you can continue to add different incomes if you've got more than one, as well as other incomes. So, you know, perhaps I've got a little bit on the side, I'm getting a director's payment, you know, whatever it may be. Could be interest in bank accounts. All of our categories are reverse engineered to the individual tax return. So maybe I've got some interest rates are good. And you can start to build up what those forecasts. And if I just jump back to the dashboard, you'll see as we're sort of building these forecasts, I can see what my income, there is some data in the property tank at the moment, but expenses, what PAYG tax would be payable, and essentially what my taxable income will be and what my tax payable will be. So that's kind of building out the foundation as you sort of move through, I suppose, the onboarding process in itself. Once you sort of do that, I suppose it's sort of reverse mapping any other entitlements that you have. So if you use your vehicle for work-related purposes, you can select your logbook here. Whether it's the kilometers method or the logbook method, you're able to complete an actual logbook. And if you complete it for more than 12 weeks of the year, we'll locate the best 12 weeks for you. Otherwise, if you already have a logbook, you can simply use a slider and sort of update what that calculation would be. If things change, you're using your vehicle more or less at any point through the year, you can update these sliders or your logbook itself, and we'll update all of the vehicle claims, so there's no double entry or having to redo things. Alternatively, if you're using the kilometers method, you can do the same thing, choosing between 0 and 5,000 kilometers, and we'll include that as an expense. We manage depreciation in here as well. So for example, if I had a car, maybe it's a new car. What have we got? 2022. At any point in time, you can upload receipts, and they all get stored both with the transaction and also in the spare tank, which I'll show you in a minute. But depreciation claims are sort of a one-time add-in, and then they roll forwards and backwards throughout the year. And obviously you can see what the claim is, and the claims are automatically adjusted to what that logbook percentage was. If you have a hire purchase or a chattel mortgage, which are pretty common these days, you would add all those things in here as well. 6%, I'm going to be really optimistic. I bet it's not. 60 payments monthly. What date have we got these ones as? No balloons. And so we'll actually calculate the amortization schedules within the software in itself. And once you save those, we've got some smart logics that sit within bank feeds. So we'll actually look for these transactions, and we'll accurately allocate the interest and the principal components in the right place. With regards to income and expenses, I'm going to jump straight into bank feeds to kind of show you how it works from a simplistic process. So we've just added in some manual bank accounts here. However, we do have over 180 banks and institutes, so you can add as many different banks and bank accounts as you like within the system, and we'll bring in transactional data each night in a similar way to business applications work, but obviously, yeah, sort of including anything that you've got and want to share with TaxTank. And we'll also bring in data from the 1st of July for the prior financial year. So if you do have prior year tax returns to complete, you can do that within the system easily as well. We categorize everything within our tanks. Just to give you a bit of a background, I suppose, work tank with my accountant hat on would be anything in that first part of the tax return. So all of your work-related incomes, any incomes from directors, any bonuses, any pension payments or any of those other things, in addition to any work-related deductions, donations, any of that kind of claim as well. Property is investment properties within the tax return, but you can also add any other ownership structure as well using portfolios. So you can add in properties in trusts, properties in super funds, properties that don't impact tax, even your main residence as well, because we do not just calculate tax, but we provide transparency and oversight across equity, cash positions, tax positions, so you can monitor performance of assets over time. With regards to our work-related income, if I just jump back into maybe this one. So we've just got some dummy data, one we prepared earlier. Within the system for work-related income and expenses, you can add in rules. So at any point in time, you can add a rule in for frequently recurring transactions. So for example, Optus. So you've got the ability to match any conditions or match a condition. You can remove conditions. They can contain certain words or equal certain words to ensure that things are, I suppose, mapped correctly. You choose which tank it relates to or personal categories which can be customized. And if this one is work tank and it's my mobile phone, maybe I'm going to claim 85% of it, and I can create that rule. And so you'll see within bank feeds now that those transactions actually are flagged. So you can review before you okay. But sometimes, if you're sure Optus is Optus, it's not going to change anytime soon. So you can actually tick this apply the rule automatically button, which is great for things that recur, fuel, any sort of internet expenses, anything that is a frequent transaction, or even personal expenses. And so then they will auto allocate each night. So when they come in, they'll automatically be allocated like they have now, and you won't even need to see them. If you did want to see them, you can jump across into the account transaction tab. We've got a little switch here, so at any point you can kind of jump in and see what's auto allocated to ensure that things have gone into the right spot. And if you needed to change anything, obviously you can redo, and it brings it back into the reconcile tab to be able to reallocate. With regards to wages, so once again, we've got allocate, we've got transfer, and we've got more. Under more, we have find and match. We also have a delete option, but only because I have imported these transactions manually. If this was a real bank account, then you wouldn't see the delete option, because that would obviously, mess with account balances and things wouldn't match at the end of the day. But just for allocate, once again, you have these category options. So you can kind of select which chart of accounts this transaction will belong to. We know it's work tank, we know it's salary and wages, so we can continue. Because I added that forecast in, so we know that for an $80,000 income, being paid monthly, we know what the tax withheld is. And so the system will pre-populate any of those amounts. If there's some special characteristics, so maybe I've got a bonus or an allowance or, any of those sorts of living away from home or workplace giving, they can be created here as well. And obviously the important thing is making sure that the gross income, the tax withheld, is correct. You can attach receipts and you can save. And so once that happens, just to show you, if I jump back into the work tank and into the income tab, you'll now see that that transaction is sort of populating. And so as the year progresses and you're allocating transactions from bank feeds, they're automatically feeding through into the work tank, and it's calculating for you in these income and expense tabs. And in addition, obviously, you're seeing what that work-related income is as an aggregate in the overview sections. Back to bank feeds. Yeah, so same thing applies with regards to this transaction, for example. If I say I want it to allocate all the time by itself, maybe I don't want an amount, but if it equals car, and then if I go to insurance, work-related, it's automatically picking up what my logbook claim was, which was that 65% that I set earlier. And you can create. So all those rules will just sort of pre-populate and take care of themselves. And you can continue to set up your, I suppose, all your bank transactions with anything recurring to really eliminate having to do many manual transactions. We've sort of made that auto allocation something that's possible, which is a bit different to business applications because of personal transactions. We do have budgeting features on the dashboard which work within the same allocations. So for example, I hate budgeting, it just makes me feel bad about myself, but some people really, really love it. So we've kind of got this budgeting feature here where you can kind of set in, anything that you like, whether that's let's say insurance, because we just done some of that. Maybe it's going to be $200 a month, wishful thinking. Yeah, and then you'll sort of start to populate. So, in the work tank, now you can see I've already blown my insurance budget without even trying. But the idea is to kind of build out what those personal components are, any property, your work-related expenses, or any other expenses that are related to your, I suppose, your overarching budget to manage money. So back to bank feeds. Just to touch on property, I suppose TaxTank is very property centric. Property is important. It's a nice stable asset, and there's no real software on the market to provide oversight with regards to managing performance and tax in the way that we're able to do that. So within the system, yeah, you can manage loans. We manage all of those things down to borrowing expenses. There is smart features within the software to calculate, borrowing expenses over the 5 years, if we're sort of updating some title search fees, whatever that may be. If I jump into the property tank, you'll kind of see that we've already added one investment property in here. But when you're adding property, you can add in any properties in any portfolios. So the software will manage vacant land and all of those beautiful new capitalization rules that we have around that. Trust property, share properties, the special calculations to ensure those claims are accurate, owner occupied and investment. And you can also create your own portfolio. So, you know, whether you've got 1 property or 10 properties, you can sort of categorize them however makes sense to you. Within our property tank, we obviously provide the total portfolio value, irrespective of the ownership structure. The LVR then can be calculated holistically. We also produce a borrowing power report, which is a really nice thing to see before you apply for a loan. And you've got the functionality to sort of, I suppose, select which properties you want to leverage to be able to have more meaningful conversations with brokers. And you can, of course, invite your broker as well to expedite that lending process. Then we kind of break it down into the portfolio levels and then down into the property level. And the whole time within the software, we're looking at the market values, the cash positions, tax positions, and of course, rental returns. And then you can click into it. Obviously, this is a beautiful little beachfront property somewhere. Yeah, and once again, the whole system works within the same expenses, incomes, depreciation. Equity is obviously an inclusion within the property tank and the property itself. You can share properties with co-owners, so there's no duplicate data entry. You can adjust forecasts at any time. And probably one of the key features within the property tank is the ability to calculate CGT without even trying. So we pull any add backs within the system, you know, any holding costs for land automatically. So really, I mean, if you sort of, you know, what if scenario, what a CGT outcome could be, you just need to put in what the estimated sale price is. Maybe I'm going to do that this year. Commissions, expensive, whatever your legal fees are. And we're calculating CGT in real time as per your ownership percentage. And then in the third step, it is the exemptions that apply. Obviously, the longer you use the system, the more information that we'll know about the property, whether or not it used to be a principal place and was moved to a different portfolio, you know, whether it was a home office or any of those other criteria. But more importantly, we'll know whether or not the 50% CGT discount will apply. And then you can save that to calculate CGT. You can, of course, unsell things if you're mucking around. But the whole idea, if I jump across to our tax summary, at any given time, you can sort of jump in here and see your tax position in real time. Tax returns are pretty complex and, you know, 24 pages of boring stuff. So we've tried to make it a little bit more interesting and sort of breaking up that tax return into things that make sense. And once again, you can kind of drill down into different components to see what's making up these numbers. At any point in time, you have different properties. It would sort of expand with the data that's being put through the system and to show you what your projected tax position is. So yeah, so that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And the other important part is the spare tank. So whether you're adding receipts at the bank allocation process or in a tank itself, you know, whether you're adding capital expenses or depreciation schedules, anything related to a property will be stored within its own property folder. Any receipts to or save within the system will come under this receipts tab and roll forward year after year. So you don't need to search for things in particular tanks or times. And you can also have flexibility to create your own folders, and you can upload documentation with anything else that you want to secure in a safe place. So yeah, so once again, if I jump back onto the dashboard, you know, here's where you can invite your accountant and you can invite advisors. From the dashboard as well, you've also got a full support of TaxTank articles and tutorial videos and your online chat. TaxTank is pretty well monitored, you know, 7 days a week to support any users with any queries that they have. And we've also got a nice little partnership with ITP accountants who, who do tax returns within the system for, I think it's like $120 and $55 property schedule. So yes, that's definitely a nice little win for everyone as well. Is there any questions so far?
Oh, here we go. The question is just in regards to the property depreciation, say the depreciation schedule. Do you load that in, or is that just a hard copy that you refer to as the?
No.
How's that work?
Okay, let me show you. Let me just jump up. Am I still showing my screen? Hang on. All right, so if I jump into property, I know we sort of added a vehicle, but yeah, hang on, I've sold it. Let me unsell it. Yep. Property. Let me unsell it so I can show you. All right, so that property is back again now. So from the depreciation tab, it's a matter of sort of selecting whether or not it's plant and equipment that you're adding, or if it's a building in itself. So the building, obviously you can do building at cost, you know, it's going to be a really cheap house. It doesn't matter which year that you enter this data, we'll calculate the term of the schedule. And if you're working off an existing schedule, then it's always beneficial to work off the tax return, just in case there's been any adjustments. So if the closing balance of the prior year is any different to what we've calculated, you know, you can update that closing balance to ensure the schedules are consistent with what's being claimed previously. And you just save. So if it was, for example, an air conditioner, you know, it's a sort of that one-off entry component. We're using all of the ATO rates and claim amounts. So maybe it's, you know, $5,000, and it doesn't matter which year. We'll sort of produce what that closing balance would be. And the difference between what we do as well, once an asset falls below $1,000, if it's diminishing, we'll automatically transition it to the low value pool. If it's below $300, when you bought it, we'll automatically write things off. So I suppose we'll auto calculate the depreciation to the maximum claim based on the allowed tax logic.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously if you replace things, then you can go back in and you can edit and you can write off assets as well to ensure that, you know, there's anything that's redundant can be claimed for immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work in here, and I suppose the other thing to mention with depreciation is you can add in DIY projects. You know, if you're one of those savvy bathroom renovators, you can create a bathroom project and then collate any of those expenses or contractors into that one project and start the depreciation pool at a particular date in the future. So yeah, it's another helpful thing to do.
They did that 2 years ago.
Good old DIY. Within the system as well, through the onboarding process, probably important to mention, you also have a lot of general information. So this is crucial because these things also impact tax, whether or not you've got student loans or, you know, if you've got CGT losses. In the holdings tank, we also manage CGT. So if you're, you know, one of those avid crypto investors that everyone seems to be, you know, as you're buying and selling, we'll be constantly updating the CGT to ensure that that is incorporated and you get no surprises at the end of the tax season or expensive accounting bills for that matter. But all these things sort of add into the overarching equation. But yeah, is there any other questions?
So how does if you had a trust or a company in a trust, for example, how does that work?
So you've got a property in a trust?
We'll have a property in a company that's in a trust.
Okay, so like a corporate trustee?
Yeah.
So we've got this managed property. So we've obviously got a lot of set portfolios because, you know, they're sort of those common ones. But you can create your own portfolios. And so, you know, this could be, you know, my company or whatever it may be. The trick within the system is whether it's held in your name or held in another entity. Obviously, in your case, it would be. And whether you've been letting it out for Airbnb, because there's additional tax logic that would go with that. And you would just add that portfolio. And now that I've added that portfolio, when I'm adding the street address, for example, my company is now an option. And so the difference, so then you would just put, you know, that property or multiple if there's more properties in there than one. And the difference is we'll still produce the business schedule or the property schedule. I'll show you that in reports, property schedules. So any report that you expect to see at the back of a tax return, you'll find in this system, and it looks better. But yeah, so basically it is your property schedule in essence. So what your accountant would use to prepare your tax return. And we'll produce those for all properties, irrespective of ownership. But in the tax summary, we'll only include the properties that are included for tax, whether that's investment or share properties, as per your ownership percentage.
That's good.
Yeah. While we're sort of at reports, we have income and expense reports. So you can correlate your data by month. You know, if you want to see the months or a particular month, you've got full flexibility. You can also compare prior years as well. So if you sort of wanted to see how things are transitioning year after year, you can do that. We have a net asset report, whether it's all assets within your TaxTank account or whether it's your ownership percentage. You can kind of flex between the two and see what that looks like. That's pretty helpful for, you know, brokers and financial planners as well. And then, of course, you know, all of the usual transaction reports. We have the My Tax report as well for people who like to self-lodge. Depreciation reports. If the Soul Tank was in here as well, it would be business schedules. So everything is, I suppose, calculated to alleviate those tax time hassles and, you know, make that whole process with your accountant seamless. Yeah, so we get pretty excited about tax around here. Is there any other questions?
No, not for me.
Yeah, so all right, well then I suppose yeah, is there anything you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think, you know, the beauty of TaxTank is that we've tried to simplify managing your tax, you know, on a regular basis rather than at the end of financial year and trying to get all your data together and head to the accountant and, you know, have that stressful month or so while you're trying to pull it all together. The whole idea behind TaxTank is that you can actually manage it live throughout the year. You can set up all those automated bank rules, which I personally love myself because, you know, I can go in once a week and I've probably got a handful of personal transactions that are left to allocate, and it's usually coffee or eating out or, you know, those kind of things that I don't really know what I can plan for, but at least I can see how I'm traveling throughout the year. And, you know, that's the whole point behind TaxTank, is that we've tried to make it as simple as possible, make it as pretty as possible. So, you know, that, you know, from a software point of view, it actually looks good and easy to use.
Intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the benefit of live bank feeds as well is that, you know, nothing can be missed. So, you know, it's not like, you know, you got to allocate transactions. So you're not going to miss anything. And in addition, if you do have cash transactions, you know, there's functionality to sort of add those in as well and store your receipts. I mean, the ATO say that I think it's 88% of their claims are disallowed because people can't substantiate. So, you know, this software definitely alleviates that pain point and, you know, maintains those documentations and the integrity of the data over the long term. Yeah, so that's what we do. Any any thoughts or any questions or anything we can answer?
That sounds good to me. I'm just putting my tax together now.
We know a software that might help.
Yeah. Well, look, that's it too. And we know, obviously, that, you know, we really like property and then sort of sole traders and things. And, you know, for them, the ATO is increasing focus and even on work-related expenses now and home office hours, you know, there's functionality to manage all of those things within the software. So without getting down into the minutiae, I mean, there's lots to play around with once you sort of get in and start trialing TaxTank.
Yeah, and we all have to pay tax, but one little thing we like to say is that you don't have to give them a tip. So if you're claiming everything you're entitled to, then you're sort of ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, it's good fun. ATO love us.
Thank you, ladies. We'll make sure that a link to this is on our intranet for those that have missed the session that are interested in TaxTank. So thank you.
No problem. We'll share that with you as soon as we've got it ready.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Bye.
Thanks.